Hey guys, it's Jesus McDonald here. Hope you all are having a great day so far. Real quick, if you haven't subscribed to the show yet, please take a few seconds to subscribe so you don't miss out on any valuable content around entrepreneurship and around marketing. Also, don't forget to leave us a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts. We definitely need your help when it comes to reaching a wider audience. Now, today, my guest is Eric Quanstrom. Eric, welcome to the show.
Hey, Zeus, it's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, same here. I'm pretty fired up about this. Now, I want to start by giving our listeners and viewers a short bio of who you are, just to kind of give them more context, and then we'll dive right into the questions.
Sounds like a plan.
Now, for those that don't know Eric, Eric serves as Chief Marketing Officer of CIENCE, the recognized leader in lead generation managed services. He brings a rare combination of marketing, digital media, operations, technology, and strategic experience to his role, where he guides inbound and outbound marketing, demand generation, and brand programs. Eric, thank you again for joining the show, and thank you for your time.
You betcha. Yeah, that's a mouthful, right?
It really is. I was like, now, what inspired you to choose a career in marketing? Like, why not a different avenue? Why not sales or a different career path? I'm just curious.
Well, it's interesting. I think I'd have to go back actually quite a while because my marketing career began 2 decades ago. And I will just be very honest with you and say that marketing's changed a ton
Yeah,
in the last
it
15, 20
has.
years. And that said, marketing's always fascinated me. I see marketing as a craft and myself as a craftsman, and it never gets old. The study of behavioral psychology, why people buy, how to position brands for best success, ultimately
Mm,
competing for attention in kind of a digital environment are things that I truly enjoy. And I can see myself, frankly, as a marketer till probably the day I die, if not retire. So
yeah. Now, what was
that's a little
interesting,
bit of my story.
yeah. Well, I was going to say what's interesting is, I'm definitely not an internet creeper, but when I did go to your LinkedIn profile, you started off as sales and then, or have sales experience, and then ended up focusing on marketing, right? Was there a reason for that transition?
Definitely on the BD side, but I will be honest. I actually came up through the ranks right after my undergraduate education, working for what was then the largest media conglomerate in the world, and worked on, frankly, the television side as a producer,
Wow.
and made a pretty big pivot into an internet startup back in the dot-com one days,
Mm,
and ultimately learned all the lessons that business school or college doesn't teach, especially around failure, and had a remarkable experience with not a great outcome for that dot-com startup that I cut a lot of teeth at back in the day. At any rate, took that experience, kind of moved into business development, went and got my MBA in marketing, and then kind of transitioned on the other side into a variety of VP of marketing and CMO roles ever since then.
nice. Do you miss sales?
I don't, and I get it every day because I actually work for what can rightly be described as a sales company. So,
Right.
if you really think about science and the business that we're in, what you quickly learn is that we operate at the top of the funnel and we operate for a pretty wide range of clients. I think the largest by total revenue is Cardinal Health, if not Google, um,
Hmm.
all the way on down to I think our smallest organization is a company of two people, sales consultancy out of Atlanta, Georgia. At any rate, the fun thing about all of that is developing leads, setting appointments, contributing to their own sales pipeline is something that I find endlessly fascinating. And so
Mhm.
being the marketer on the side of the fence that gets to put us in harm's way and otherwise leads people to discover what science is all about is just a fun ride each and every day.
Yeah. And we'll touch a little bit on science too, because I do want to know the nature of the business and what you guys are doing. And I think science really have a great they have a great asset on their team, which is you, Eric, because you do have that sales background. So it kind of goes hand in hand with marketing, right? So it's a great benefit to science that you have both experiences.
I don't know if I'll earn any enmity amongst your listeners, but I'm one of these heads of marketing who actually believes that marketing serves sales, and I fundamentally take that attitude with me into the workplace every single day, philosophically, because we pave
Mm,
the way for sales to do an extraordinarily hard job and
yes,
do it well. And that's really where I think the rubber meets the road. With doing good marketing makes sales actually look good and makes their job easy. And ultimately, the company wins with ever
right.
greater revenues.
Totally. And I'm 100% agree with you. I'm in line with you when it comes to the marketing serving sales. Um, Another question that I have for you is, you have a phenomenal, resume. Again, saw your LinkedIn profile and you have a lot of sales experience. You have a lot of marketing experience. I was just curious to know, how did you work your way up the ladder?
Well, I followed a less circuitous path in that I had already kind of worked my way up again at what was then known to the world as News America Digital Publishing, or Fox, were the publicly traded brand names
Hmm.
that I supported. And, by the time I was, good God, what, 24, 25, I had 14 direct reports in this very large politically driven organization. And, I kind of chucked it all to go work for a .com startup. And I think that experience and having like these entrepreneurial background gets you started on a path, because that was actually my first head of marketing role. So I may not have been the best fit, to be perfectly honest, at that time, but I kind of fell into the job and worked my way like towards much more successful outcomes with each one of the successive roles that I had um, following that.
What has been your favorite part about helping the sales team? I'm just curious because I know you mentioned where we're both in line with is serving the salespeople, right? Making sure their job is as easy as possible, or maybe that's me saying that. But but what do you enjoy the most about helping out the sales team?
What I enjoy the most is really capturing a buyer's attention in the buyer's journey with truths and kind of meaningful proof points, and the realization that you're helping them make a wise investment, make a wise choice.
Mm,
In our case, with the service that we provide, but in other
right.
cases with the product or solution that you're going to market with. And I think that I have a thesis that I operate on, and I kind of tell anyone that'll listen, especially our own sales team, that I actually think that it's harder these days to buy than it is to sell. What
Yes.
does that mean? It means that I believe that some of the most predominant trends in especially B2B sales are that most buying organizations consensus purchase. It's never just one authoritarian sole decision maker on top of a mountain pointing to a given vendor of choice. It's literally like everyone that has an opinion, everyone on a team that might touch the product or solution,
Mhm.
everyone that could be considered a decision influencer, all involved in that buying. Number two, I think that nobody goes to buying school unless your title is procurement. You actually don't usually have formal training in purchasing anything.
Mm,
And I actually say this from, again, decades of experience on the buy side, which is where most marketers live whenever they have budget.
right.
You know, shockingly enough, people find their way to your door when they realize like just how much money you have to drop on tools and advertising and resources and what have you.
Right.
And then I think those two kind of like ingredients together, faced with an environment of endless choice and endless information, which is kind of like the third leg of the stool. I can go to Google for just about anything I want. I can read reviews on any product or solution that I might want to let into my company or decide might be a good idea for my team or to further a goal that I might have. And so ultimately, that choice, however, is fraught with peril, because in today's day and age, there's never just one. There's
Right.
never just a single shining immediate answer to all the questions that I might have. So at any rate, in a consensus purchase with unlimited choice, faced with kind of like these overwhelming odds, buying is really hard
Hmm.
to bring to bear. And ultimately, it's good salespeople and well armed salespeople with hopefully good marketing leading people to one's door or framing the conversation, framing the message that leads to buyer and seller meeting and having a successful outcome.
That's awesome. I really like that. I was also going to ask, do you guys like create landing pages, email campaigns that's personalized and like just tailored to the sales rep specifically?
We don't go all the way down to the rep, but we definitely create highly personalized, very bespoke
Hmm.
landing pages as part of not only our outreach or outbound efforts, but as part of most of the inbound activities that we have here at Science.
Nice, nice. Now, from your experience, what was the difference between being a VP of marketing versus a CMO?
I only held one VP of marketing role, and that was at a company called Site Speed, which was eventually acquired by Logitech. And
Mm-hmm.
so I guess I technically held that role through for a number of months with a much larger organization. But the biggest difference that I found was really just in kind of name alone, largely because that company was focused on a very B2C play.
I see.
Um, we were a competitor to Skype and operated in kind of like the voice over IP space back in the 2007 to 2009 timeframe. Since then, I've been almost exclusively B2B, and the chief marketing officer roles that I've held there are really about controlling kind of message, having your finger on the pulse of all marketing activities, all marketing spend, all go to market like choices that you might make,
Hmm.
largely in portfolio approaches. So, what does that mean? That means basically the ability to determine, hey, where do I feel like are the best go to market bets that I can place? And what do I want to keep, how do I let my winners run? How do I keep investing in the channels that are returning the highest um, return back to me? And what's performing best ultimately when it moves to sales? So, having really tight controls over attribution, the types of campaigns you want to run, and the results are, kind of the hallmarks, I think, of good CMO decision making.
Right. Now let's touch a little bit about science. What differentiates science from other companies?
Well, my hope here would be three main areas of differentiation that we can execute upon. Because I will say this, I don't think that the world is holding its breath and waiting for kind of the next
Right.
lead generation firm to pop up. That said, the three areas that I think are most important to our differentiation story are really around process, specialization, and technology. So we've made some huge bets on kind of all three. And the way we do things is fundamentally different than a lot of our competitors. Some of the proof points of why we may be doing things right or more right than our relevant competition include the fact that we've been an Inc. 5000 company, including a top 200 Inc. 5000 company twice now. We've grown from a zero-person startup in 2015 to just under 750 people today, and
That's awesome.
again have served a fairly wide number of logos in the B2B space, many of whom are very recognizable and ultimately are winning on their behalf, which is the most exciting thing about Science, is probably the ability for us to get into situations where when we win, so do our client companies.
Hmm.
And we're in a very virtuous cycle. We're supplying new pipeline, new sales opportunities, new sales conversations for our clients to have on a regular, consistent, dare I even say predictable basis.
Mhm.
And that's really a good business to be in, and one that, people, we find the demand curve is really strong for that.
Yeah. Now every company has By the way, great job answering all these questions. I have a, a lot of questions, and I love it because I'm getting to know you a lot better. I'm getting to know science a lot better, and it's awesome. It's beautiful. Every company has their own ideal client, right? For science, who is their ideal client?
I'm actually going to give a somewhat surprising answer. Our ideal client is probably one of the most broad total addressable markets that you're likely to come across. And the reason rotates back to the question that I just answered.
Hmm.
Our own qualification process of what makes for a good client, bad client, actually has way more to do with the business model of the sales cycle that we would feed into than it does
Right.
about industry, size, geography, or other aspects of a client that might choose to work with us. Uh,
Interesting.
yeah, in fact, what I would say, just to kind of make it clean and easy and talkable, is the fact that bad fit clients for us are generally transactional sales companies. Freemium software would be a really good example, or apps that don't have a long, consultative sales process on the other side that we would feed into.
Hmm.
When those conditions are present, and usually higher price points or higher ACVs, what we find is that outbound can and oftentimes is one of the leading go to market activities that you can engage in. And when that's true, science becomes a very relevant option.
Interesting. That is interesting. Something that I need to spend more time digesting because I start thinking about, okay, what kind of companies have, you know, a long-term agreement maybe where they have, the cycle is longer for the leads. You mentioned like mobile companies, right? Mobile app companies. So it just made me start thinking about what are other companies out there that have more of a short cycle.
Yeah, I mean, I would actually just think of it as simply as how many humans are involved in selling the product, service, or solution that a client is bringing to market.
That makes sense.
If there's zero humans, then outbound's not going to really make any sense at all, and
Right? Yeah.
you'd be focused on a lot of other channels first.
No,
Um,
that makes sense.
yeah,
Um, Sorry, were you going to say something else?
I was just going to say that I think one of the things that brings light to the value of where science can differentiate, but oftentimes is also just a hallmark of outbound, is this idea around specialization. So, back in the day, it was very common to have salespeople that would do all their own research, do all their own prospecting, do all their own initial, kind
Right.
of like investigation or discovery calls, do all of their own negotiations, do all of their own configure price quote type of activities. And then, oh, by the way, close those deals and then manage them themselves.
Hmm.
And if I'm honest, what I just described is frankly a unicorn, because that person that would do that cradle to grave sales cycle endeavoring, first
Yeah.
of all, would have a really hard time managing their schedule, would usually be deficient in one or more of those areas that I just described, and would suffer from a pipeline feast or famine type of scenario, all of which are things that sales specialization fixes.
Right. Yeah, because what you just described is like the salesperson on it's like its own silo, right? And the marketing department or team doing their own thing. And when you have people on different channels, it's hard to be unified on anything, right? Because everyone has a different focus.
That's exactly right. And I think that specialization is the rule, not the exception, in virtually every other department in an organization. There's not a development department that I know of that, if they're looking for a Java developer, all of a sudden just taps a guy within engineering
Yeah.
like title and says, "Hey, can you go start coding in a language you don't know?" No, doesn't happen. Same with
Right.
marketers, right? Like I wouldn't dream of having our designers start writing our press releases.
Hmm.
Um, like it just doesn't fly. And I think that specialization done right is kind of the rule, and where the world is already moving. We're getting away from generalists in most roles,
Right.
especially roles that have to do with knowledge work. As such, that trend line is one that, I feel like CIENCE, our company, has really placed its bets on the table around because we believe we can specialize just about as well, if not better, than any company under the sun. And we're proving that model every single day.
That's awesome. Now, last question that I have for you, Eric, is do you have any advice for marketing professionals that want to become, for example, a VP of marketing or a CMO?
Well, I actually think that the best advice that I could give for finding one's own path is to kind of like specialize and become a subject matter expert at a given part of the craft. So whether that's SEO or content marketing or graphic design or brand building, whatever it is in the marketing kind of like milieu or stack, be the best that you can and potentially like hang your shingle out on that because ultimately once you're the best at something, the next usual path cycle is that you're going to manage it, right? Especially if there's room to grow into that subject. So ultimately, you can kind of like flip your way forward into all of these specialized skills so that once you say earn the right to ascend up a corporate hierarchy or a corporate ladder, you've got all of these kind of like super strengths in the bag of tricks to leverage going forward. You know, because here's the reality. There is no VP of marketing alive today. There is no CMO that specializes in everything.
Right.
That's actually where specialization goes to die, is at the management level, overseeing broad swaths of individual contributors or management layers. As such, one of the things that you can have is specialized talents for viewing like any particular subject at a really great depth and having successes on your resume, successes on your you know, I was going to use a euphemism of your belt, your notch, going forward. Because when you're successful, that's when people want to promote you.
Hmm. So, just for, I love that. For clarity purposes, are you saying be a jack of all trades, or are you saying, hey, get to know the different departments within marketing? That way, you have more of a level of depth in your understanding.
The latter, all day long. I don't even know what I would hire a jack of all trades to do,
I see.
and I don't know that I have that job posting available, and I don't know that the rest of the world does either. So I'm making some, you know, pretty broad brush statements, but ultimately, I think if I'm in my 20s and I'm thinking about a career that's got a longer arc towards a successful position,
Hmm.
you know, and maybe a time horizon of say 5 to 10 to 15 years, I would want to like succeed in the roles that I'm taking as I'm kind of bouncing my way or moving my career forward
Hmm.
up a corporate hierarchy.
I love that. I love that. Well, Eric, I appreciate your time, and you just threw some knowledge on all of us.
I tend to talk fast and I tend to be very passionate. So
I
thank
love it. I love it. And I love that you enjoy podcasting. I would definitely love to bring you on for a part two if your schedule permits.
Yeah, you got it. You name the time and I'll be there. It's interesting too. One of the things that I would say is for those that listen to podcasts at like 1.5x or 2x speed, it'll be fascinating to hear feedback on this particular interview.
They go really fast, like the Chickmunks, right? Alvin and the Chickmunks. A lot of people say I talk too slow, so this is going to be hilarious. Then,
I love it.
awesome.
Good
Well,
stuff.
you're awesome, and you make it a great day. All right.
All right. Thanks, Jesus.
Yep. Bye.